Like we always do about this time.
You're now in tune with the best podcast show online. Welcome to the Fantastically Dunn Show, the realest show you ever heard. Straight truth, no chaser. Without further ado, I introduce to you your master of ceremonies for the evening, Sonny Dunn Smith.
Yes. Welcome to the Fantastically Dunn Show. I'm your host, Sonny Dunn Smith, and today is
Make the Change Thursday exclusive.
Today is Make the Change Thursday, and today's show topic, we're going to be discussing code of conduct. If you're approached by a police officer, how should you handle this interaction? This is very, very important for all the young listeners out there. Listen up. We're going to kick some really, really good game today about this code of conduct we need to have, when we're interacting with law enforcement. Again, very, very important. I can't overstate that. And we're going to get right into it. So first of all, I want to shout you guys out there, all the listeners, much respect to everybody that's tuning in to the show. We're really having a great reaction to the show. Again, platforms created. This particular show was created for the youth. It's a youth-orientated show. It's directed towards young people. We want to engage young people. We want to have a conversation. We want to educate at the same time. But it's not just for the youth. It's just not for young people. It's also for people, that's older, my age or older. And we're going to give out some really good information on this show. And we're going to educate. That's what we're all about on this show, Fantastically Dunn Show. This is season 1. It's episode 4 right here. Make the Change Thursday. This is the first inaugural Make That Change Thursday. So yeah, as we always do, we're going to jump right into today's topic, and we're going to start addressing the topic right now. So today, with everything we're seeing going on with police and, my own personal experiences of interacting with, people that are in what they call law enforcement. One thing that I can pretty much gauge pretty well is I think there's a stigma today associated with policing and law enforcement, especially in reference to people of color coming into contact with these individuals. And I think it's just a big stigma. I think a lot of it has to do with ignorance and miseducation on both sides. I think there's certainly police officers who, I think in their mind, they think that law enforcement means to enforce the laws, which in a sense it does, but in a broader sense, what it really means is to enforce the laws that are written by those who write them. And if you've listened to my other previous shows, you'll hear me discussing that in more detail in past episodes. But I think it's a bit of ignorance, and that just has to do with better training. I think police officers need better training today to really understand what the job of policing is, what it's all about and how they need to approach it, because at least from their standpoint, I think it's a bit of ignorance, it's miseducation. When you're a police officer, your job is not to make up the laws as you go. They're not for you to be the police, the judge, the prosecutor, the jury, and the executioner. Your job is to learn the laws that have been written, and you need to memorize those laws, because again, if you're going to be enforcing a law, you need to know what that law is. Okay? So it's very, very important that our police officers today are educated thoroughly in what exactly the laws are that they'll be enforcing. Secondarily to that, obviously on the other side of that, like I just said, I think it's ignorance on the citizens' side. It's some ignorance on that side as well. Because oftentimes, I've seen grown people freeze up when they come in contact with police. But if they actually met a politician, they're very relaxed, which, really it doesn't make sense. If you really think about it, it really doesn't make sense. That interaction should actually be the opposite. You should actually, when you come in contact with politicians, you should actually be kind of fearful, because those are the people that really are controlling things. Those are the people that are writing the laws that will be enforced in the future. So if they're not clear about what the people want from them and what they need to do in that position, then they're going to be putting laws, enacting laws, bringing laws into enforcement that won't define the times or won't connect with the people. So laws are all about the people. They're not about, cops and this and that. They're about the people. They're supposed to be put in place to protect the people. And we know that they've definitely failed to do that over time for people of color. And, I've heard police officers say, well, the thing is, on the other side, the black people that aren't criminals, they call us when they're in some trouble or someone's threatening them. At the end of the day, that really doesn't have anything to do with it. And once again, any police officer that states something like that, he really doesn't understand what policing is, because policing is not going to a murder scene or doing detective work. Policing is at the core of it. It's supposed to be about the laws that have been written to protect the people. And your job is to enforce those laws to be sure that the people are being properly protected. Not the streets, not the stores on the streets, not gas stations, the people. Not the houses, not what we call today in modern terms the community, but the people. There's a lot of ignorance on all sides of this, and until we get this thing right and people begin to really understand what's going on, we're going to keep running into the same situations over and over and over and over again. And then you put those two things together, you got the recipe for a bomb on your hands. Because when you have police that are misinformed and not in touch with the very position that they swore to protect and uphold, and then the citizens are walking around and they're fearful of the police, something's wrong in that scenario. And I think going into the future, we're going to have to work harder to educate young people about the laws, about how laws are written, what the purpose of laws are for, why they're written, and also to continue to further educate the young people that will be in law enforcement positions in the future. Educating them on what it is, what it isn't, and what their responsibilities should really entail. Therefore, in the future, they won't find themselves in situations and positions where they're trying to protect the street. So they're going to be engaging with people. That should never happen. The people are the actual, what you're supposed to be protecting. Not the streets, not the banks, not all that stuff. Because if you really, really understand money and you really, really understand all the intangibles that come with that, money has no real power. The only power that money really has is people being able to use it to buy things with, goods, services, things of that nature. That's really the only purpose of money. So once you understand that, then you understand, without the people, money wouldn't mean anything at all. So it's kind of pointless to protect money and not protect the people. We shouldn't make laws to protect the money. We should make better laws to protect the people. And, right now, people that are categorized as black in this country are really taking a beating, really just having a really tough time in America today. And that absolutely shouldn't be that way. I mean, let's face it, anybody that wants to say that a certain group of people act like this, that are this color, at the end of the day, this country wouldn't be anything without people of color. I mean, let's face it. Some of the greatest entertainers, athletes, inventors in American history have been people of color. So this country, the fabric of it is what it is due to the fact that there have been people of color actively participating in the activities of this country. Without that, I know it wouldn't be what it is. So that's the first thing we got to really get out of the way, and really understanding this thing and really breaking it down, is that without those, starting from that foundation, without those two key understandings on both sides of it, this is where you really begin to run into what we're seeing today, which is bad policing on the part of miseducated, ignorant police officers and law enforcement officers. And then on the other side of that, you have politicians that are out of touch with the people, that are creating laws and bringing laws forth that are not accurately addressing the wants, needs of the people of this time. And then beyond that, the people are ignorant about the power structure and how it really works and how they can make it work for them, for their best interest. So on that end, there's a lot of ignorance as well. You just have really like a conundrum of ignorance. And when you put all that together, it's a bomb. It's what we're seeing today. I think we have to work really, really hard in the future to make sure that these things are understood, and that anybody that breaks those rules, or anybody that's educated upon those rules properly and they still choose to try to go their own way about it, those people need to be punished to the harshest consequence that our society has, short of death, because I'm not a supporter of the death penalty. But I think we need to work collectively. Everyone has to work together in the future toward coming up with answers, because that's what we need. I mean, let's face it. We need answers. We don't need for people to continue, all of us come together and, we're talking about the problems and, just more problems on top of problems. We really don't need that. I think everybody has a firm grasp of what our problems are. And the problem is we don't have enough leaders with answers. We have a lot of people that will be on platforms, and some much older than myself, and they'll admit straight off the top, hey, I'm not a leader, I don't have any answers. That is the opposite of what we need from our elders, what we need from the elder statesmen. They're supposed to be passing down wisdom, knowledge, information, answers. If you're not passing that down, then that means ultimately you're passing down more confusion. That's what you're going to be passing down. And we really don't need any more confusion. What we're dreadfully in need of right now is answers and solutions. And so for the people that have those answers and solutions, we have to work to push those people to the forefront. And for all of the people that just want to kind of talk about our problems, constantly over and over again, rehashing it, coming back, leaving, rehashing again, that's not really what we need. We need answers and solutions. Keyword, solutions. That's what we need right now. So I've given my take about what some of the solutions can be for the beginning part of it, kind of addressing the ignorance, the ignorant aspect of it. The flip side of it is we have to come to terms, and this is addressed toward the actual citizens, the people that these laws are supposed to be protecting. This is to address the actual people. Another issue, as I discussed earlier in this episode, is our code of conduct if and when we are approached by a police officer. What should our code of conduct be? Now, code of conduct means to uphold yourself to a certain set of rules that you use to govern oneself. That's really what that means, and that's what that's about. I'm not a comedian. A lot of things we discuss on this show, they're real because these are real times, they're real trying times, and that's what we need right now. Every once in a while, you may get a little humor from the things that I state, but I'm really not trying to be a funny guy. My thing is to discuss tough, hard topics and try to come up with solutions and answers within 30 minutes of an episode. So that's what I'm doing here. And it's really directed, again, toward young people because young people are being affected the most and they mean the most. So those are two things that we won't be able to survive in the future without young people. This is an issue that really affects us all, but it's just been absolutely devastating to young people of color in this country. And it's something that we have to work toward changing, eradicating, and just kind of analyzing and making the proper adjustments to make it better going into the future for all young people involved and older as well. Now, again, getting back to this code of conduct. Usually what happens in the street, when we're outside of our homes or outside of our dwellings, what usually occurs is, you'll at some point come across a police officer. Obviously, they're in a car that states they're the police. And at least I know for black people, the average black person in America feels like they're being hunted, literally. Police get behind them and they start breathing heavy and being real nervous, trying to watch what they're doing. And that's not only is that very nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it's really silly, because if you really think about it, but again, we're dealing with ignorance and we have to keep that in mind. But if you really think about it, if you were to hear the mayor was behind your car, which consequently in your city, that's the most powerful person in your city, the average person wouldn't even flinch. The average black person wouldn't even flinch at that. But when you hear there's a police officer behind your car, people get nervous, they get scared. And if you really think about it, it's really crazy. It doesn't really make sense, because police officers are not the most powerful people inside of that community, in that city. Absolutely not. The only difference between a police officer and the mayor is police officers serve under the mayor and they wear guns. That's it. But again, a gun means nothing to power, because power commands many guns. So there's no such thing as a police officer or a chief or a lieutenant, sergeant running a city. At the end of the day, a police officer, let's face it, they are in reference to the political arrangement of the city. They would be serving at the bottom. Obviously, they have people within the police department they serve under that they answer to. But consequently, those people answer to the mayor. So it's really about educating our young people and ourselves about who really has the power in those situations and circumstances. And when we understand that, then we'll begin to understand how we can attack this problem, how we can address this problem, and how we ultimately can change this problem for the future. Because that's what we need right now. We need real solutions and answers. And I feel a way that we can really, kind of get down to the meat and bones of it. And we can move past this thing, because police officers far too long have been associated with corruption, fear, anxiety, the whole thing, as far as people not wanting to interact with police. One of the written rules in the neighborhood that, the city I came from, which is Cleveland, Ohio. I'm very proud of that fact. I'm a very proud Clevelander, Northeast Ohioan. I love my state, absolutely love the people in my city. I'm going to get into that in a couple later episodes. I'm going to kind of delve deep into a documentary I'm going to be working on, and also a book that I'm going to be working on in the near future here about my city, highlighting not just my story, but really the story of many people, really from across the country, because, we're all the same people when it all boils down to it. Whether you're in LA, Los Angeles, California, or, you're in New York, or you're in Chicago, or, somewhere in Illinois or Detroit, it really doesn't matter. Michigan, Ohio, it doesn't matter. We all have the same stories, and, we're all coming really from the same places. So we need answers and solutions. And, that's what I'm out to do. I'm out to give the answers, the best answer and solution I can come up with, like I said, within 30 minutes. And we're going to continue these conversations after the show, online, of course. The way we do that, and you can do that, is by, going to all of our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, also by going to the website, and which is the best place actually to interact, to send emails and things of that nature. The best place to go is fantasticallydunnshow.com. That's where a lot of our interaction will take place, and we will be also doing other things on the social channels as well, but the website is the quickest way to get in contact with me, get in contact with the show. And I want you guys to engage the show. I want you to send your questions, comments, and even just your thoughts about the episodes. Send all of that to me, and your questions, I will answer them on the following episode. I'll just kind of shuffle through, me and my team, and we'll find the most interesting questions, and I'll answer a few of them on the next episode. So we're going to really be ramping up the engagement with the show. Again, this is just the first season, so we're going to be doing a lot of great things as the months go ahead with the show, and as season 2 comes in. I believe I mentioned in previous episodes that I'm going to be selecting a co-host for the show, and we're going to be interviewing guests and things of that nature. So the show is going to go from kind of like conversational. It's still going to have the conversational aspect and tone, but we're going to be opening the show up in season 2 a lot more. So just kind of answering the last part of today's topic, which is the code of conduct if you're approached by a police officer. Basically, what you need to do in that scenario is, if a police officer approaches you, don't argue, don't fuss, be as sensible within yourself as you can be. Stay level-headed, keep everything even keel, so to speak. Stay respectful. Not because you necessarily respect the other person, but because you respect yourself. And again, a code of conduct, you're holding yourself to a certain code, a standard. That's very, very important. And so you want to do those things. And if they're asking you for something to produce a document or something, and produce it to them. And if you feel like their interaction with you is negative, by all means, get their information. Every police officer wears a badge. You get their badge number, you get some type of identifying, I don't care if it's even writing down the license plate or the number on the side of the car. Get some type of identifying information and go from there. If you need to get an attorney, you get an attorney. If you happen to have some political power within your city, then by all means, exercise your political power. That's how your interaction should be conducted. The thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to flee, we don't want to argue, and we don't want to fight, because any of those things are never going to end well. And it's just really giving a police officer the excuse to use what they classify as deadly force. And we've seen a lot of that today. People running away, being shot in the back, never had a weapon. People being physically assaulted, held down and shot because police officers, they were fearful for their safety. So the way that we can curb all of this excuse time, which has been very big time for the police, the way we can curb that, though, is by having, again, a code of conduct and professionalism that we conduct ourselves by. And really, again, understanding the hierarchy of our situation, understanding who really has the power and who doesn't. It's really pointless to talk to a police officer at the end of the day because they really don't have any power. They can't change the laws. And quite honestly, if a police officer was to, interact with you and then call in something and they actually let you off in a situation where their superiors feel like they should have suggested to the prosecutor that you be charged, they can be disciplined for that as well. And I don't know if a lot of people know that, but it's true. So the real power in that city, again, it starts with the mayor at the top. Statewide is the governor, obviously, and then you have, other authorities around that. But you want to start in the city first. And in the city, in your city, is always going to be the mayor. That's where the power lies. So if you want real change, that's how you get it. And you don't get it by doing any of the wrong things that I just spoke about. So this is the part of the show. We discussed today's topic the best as I could in the 30 minutes that we have per episode. My next thing with every show is my thought of the day. So we're at that point of the show. And my thought of the day is this: the greatest powers you possess is self-respect and self-dignity. Never allow this world to steal it away from you, for without self-love, nothing else matters. Digest that slowly and tell us what you thought of today's show. Till the next time, be great, do great. Thank you, God, for loaning the world your children. Peace. I'm out.
Thank you for tuning in to the Fantastically Dunn Show. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And comment on the show. For show notes to this episode and all past episodes, head over to www.fantasticallydunnshow.com. Until the next time, remember, you are whoever you think you are, so think you're great.